News Radio 1400 KTEM. Good evening and welcome to the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. I'm Jamie Garrett, checking in here a half hour early this evening as we've got a special hour-long edition of the Temple Coaches Show. And coming up at 6:30 tonight, the UMHB Coaches Show. Pete Fredenberg and John Wallin will be on to wrap up the season. Unfortunately, not the way they wanted that season to end, but they'll be in to wrap it up. And we've got UMHB basketball coming up starting this Thursday night, so we'll have a weekly Coaches Show at 6:30 with UMHB for basketball coming up starting a little bit later, I guess next week, next Tuesday night. But this evening, it's about the Temple Wildcats. Cole Martin joining us. We'll talk to him here in just a little bit. Chad President is here. Defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. We'll talk to him, of course, about Friday's win, 38-35. And, Coach, I mentioned a week or so ago, I asked the question, so many of these games, especially in the playoffs, end with Chad taking a knee. Would you like to see a close game every now and again? I respectfully withdraw that question now. I certainly like it a lot better when you're taking a knee at the end. Well,
I do too, Jamie. But I got to honestly tell you, what an unbelievable finish to a great football game. I mean, the best way I can describe it, and the only way I can describe it is just euphoric. I mean, I've been in and had the opportunity, obviously, to be a part of some really fun stuff and have won some ball games late and all those things, but never in that fashion and never when it counted like that counted. I mean, it literally is a kick, literally to keep your season alive. And obviously we weren't dead in the water if he misses it. But, we're going to overtime. But it was a game-winning field goal. Any way you want to slice it and dice it. And, man, I just couldn't be prouder of him, our team, our grind, our resolve, all the things that we've done to get where we're at. And it's just a great time for Temple. It's what I felt like could happen when I decided that this is where I wanted to be, and just been it was an awesome experience and an awesome win.
Well, I got to say, it's certainly looking back at that win, that field goal wouldn't be there at the end if it hadn't been for the gutty performance throughout the game by the entire team. I mean, they took their shots. You jumped up early. You held on, as you've said in the past weeks, survived in advance, and that's exactly what happened. But once again, not only the ice in the veins of Cole Martin, but Chad President. We said at the beginning of that drive, last drive of the game, it's Chad President time, and the team just leaned on him. It wasn't a solo effort by any stretch of the imagination, but he made big plays when he had to.
Jamie, I decided a while back, and one of the things I changed offensively in my career was that I wanted to be multidimensional and be able to do things when we needed to do them. And we have been a heavy run team the last couple of years because we've had two very good running backs. But we've also had the ability to throw the football. I'm convinced that if you really are going to win a state championship, you better be able to do one or the other. You can't. You better be able to do both. You can't just be one-dimensional, or I really don't think you give yourself much of a chance now. I realize there may be teams that may, put that theory to the test, but I'm convinced that if you go in, an example would be, I think, the last 2 weeks. I think we've played two football teams that came in and said, we're not going to let these guys beat us running the football. And, sure enough, we've thrown for probably pushing 700 yards now, in the last 2 weeks and probably pushing over 1,000 in the last 3. So, I think our ability right now offensively to take what they give us, and then, I couldn't be prouder of our defense. I think people have to realize, we're playing elite football now. We're one of 8 teams left in the state of Texas. Next week there'll be 4. And so, when you look at the schedules and you look at teams and things like that, you just have to understand that we're at that point in our season. That's what you're going to see. I wanted to flip on the film at George Ranch and I wanted to go see them and realize, and hope that they weren't very good. But we're talking about a team that was 13-1 a year ago. They're 12-1 this year, and here we are. We're in the quarterfinals, and they got to play us and we got to play them. And so I was just real proud of our guys and the ability to come down to the wire and win a football game, because you're going to need to do that through the playoffs. It really is about advance and win.
Well, we'll talk specifics about George Ranch in just a little bit, but I would imagine a huge help that they were playing in Waller, right? I mean, literally just an eye shot from the highway. Gene and I actually talked about going and watching the game ourselves, but we just decided to listen to it on the iPhone on the way back. But it had to help that the coaching staff, not just a couple scouts, not taking their job lightly, of course, but it had to help seeing them with your own eyes and getting a look at what they can do out on the field.
Well, it did, Jamie. It's 2 weeks in a row I've been able to see our opponents in person, and there's nothing. I mean, it's something that's valuable, because you get a feel for personality when you see somebody in person. I mean, honestly, the way film is today, scouting's changed a lot. I mean, you don't necessarily scout what they're doing as much as you do what their personality is, what kind of pace do they play at, how do their kids act on the sidelines, all those kind of things. They're, and they're, as Ridge Point was, I mean, we're starting to see teams now that, we're talking about undefeated district champions. We're talking about, teams that have made playoff runs a year ago, all those kind of things. And George Ranch is certainly one of those teams and brings a whole new set of things to the table. I mean, it just, every week now is every week. And here it is. It's cold outside. I told somebody yesterday it's cold outside. It's December, and we're coaching football, and I love that.
Absolutely. It's better than up-downs in the gymnasium, training in the off-season. Wouldn't be here today talking if not for, as I mentioned, I'm running out of adjectives for the way your team is winning, in the sense that it's gutty, it's gutsy, you grind it out, you find different ways to win each week. If you would have told me 10 minutes before kickoff that Chad President was going to have 3 interceptions and both Marcus Hatcher and Jeff Carr are going to be held under 100 yards rushing, I would have said, oh boy, that's Ridge Point's defense coming through. But that goes to show you stats do lie sometimes, because Temple pulled it out despite all that.
Well, Jamie, we're offensively, I mean, we're talking about a team that Ridge Point had given up 101 points. We talked about that last week, and that's 8.4 a game, and had held offenses throughout the year. Their season average was 191 yards a game defensively. And, of course, we went out and put almost 600 yards on them and 38 points. So, those are things we have to do. I mean, we've got to feed off each other. We've got to score when they do. I thought the fourth down thing early, that was a big point of emphasis for us this week. We talked that up as a team. I talked to our team about it. I know Coach Stewart talked to the defense about it, and I talked to the offense about it, but I also talked to our team about it. And we told them, we said, look, there's going to be an opportunity in this game. It may be on the first drive, and, of course, that was prophetic because it was, and likely will be on the first drive. You hold them to a fourth down, they're going to try to go for it. You hold them, we go score, it'll change the game. I thought it did. I mean, if you think about it, he went for it. He didn't go for it in that situation again. I mean, he went for it a couple times, but he wasn't on his own 35 thinking he was going to do it again.
And he had a couple opportunities.
He had a couple opportunities to do that. So I thought that was a game changer in a lot of ways. I mean, they went for it 7 times against CE King, converted all 7 of them, and 5 of those in their own end of the field. That was something we knew we had to stop, and I was real proud of our focus of our staff on that, and also getting that point across to our kids. And our kids were ready for that moment. I mean, our offense was ready for that moment. We got them on the sidelines when that fourth down came, and we said, okay, guys, here it comes. We got to take the field and we got to go score. And sure enough, 4 plays later, I think it was, we were in the end zone, and I think it was, I don't know exactly how many it was, but I know it happened fast, and it really changed the dynamic, I think, of how they thought and how they played their game.
Well, despite an interception on the first drive, you had, we say with relative ease, but every play you got to earn. But you were able to move the ball against them early, found a lot of success deep on the passing game. One was just a miscue. Somebody dropped the ball defensively. But other than that, Chad had to make some pretty good throws into some pretty tight coverage and did that. But throughout the game, they were able to clamp down and keep drives from going consistently downfield. What did they change up to find success a little bit later on?
Well, I mean, one thing, and I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit later with Scott, but, good grief, Jamie. I mean, we've placed 2 running backs now that have carried the ball almost 80 times themselves, and it's stupid when you think about that. And so really consistency is always the key, I think. And then offensively, it's about taking opportunities. Scoring 28 points in the first half was awesome. Now, I'm a little disappointed we only scored 10 in the second. We had our chances, but I was a little bit disappointed in that. But the game kind of took on a different flavor in the second half. We continued to throw the football, and we continued to do the same things we were doing. Certainly didn't try to sit on it or anything like that. But, that's what's going to happen. I mean, you're talking about a 12-0 football team we're playing. I mean, this is not a third game of the season against an opponent that, we're playing for a proverbial football life. And it's a dynamic at this late in the playoffs that I think our fans are starting to understand. And by the way, it'd probably be a good time Jamie, I can't tell you. 4 years ago, when Roxanne and I, my wife, decided that we wanted to be, live in Temple, Texas, and do this thing. One of the driving factors for me, because I'll be honest with you, we just come off an 11-2 season at Abilene Cooper. I felt like we were going to be good the next year, and sure enough, they did go 3 rounds deep. The next 2 years. But I knew if we could ever duplicate that here in Temple, if we could ever get, this thing rolling again, that I really believed, looking at the history of Temple, Texas, this thing would catch on and take fire. And I may ramble a little bit here, but I can't tell you how much I love this place. I mean, I love Temple High School, and even as much so, I love living and being a resident of Temple, Texas. It's a unique community. It's a tough, blue-collar, hard-nosed community, full of people who are grinders, full of people who are tough, and we have tough kids because of that, mentally tough kids. And so I felt like if we could ever get this thing rolling, it could be special. And, man, the crowd the other day was awesome. We expect it'll be awesome again this Saturday because we're only 45 minutes away. If they'll make a 3-hour run and fill it up, I can't imagine what it may be like next Saturday. And that's a huge deal for us and our kids. We could hear them outside the gates before they ever open the gates up. So it's a special thing, man. This Temple thing's really cool.
Pardon an OU guy from making an analogy here, but it reminds me a lot of when Stoops came to Oklahoma. The excitement there was amongst the fan base for sure, because it had been so long since they'd had a winner. For Temple, it's been a little bit longer, but from a player's perspective, do you think that it's been easier for you as a coach to keep them humble, keep them grounded, keep them focused on the right thing, in that they don't have that thought in the back of their mind, well, we're Temple, so we're going to get this. It's almost like Temple is proverbial underdog now because it's been so long since Temple's been at the top.
There's some truth to that, Jamie. Now, this has been an interesting year because we kind of came in as one of the top teams. I mean, we've kind of been ranked all year long, and I know I mentioned this last week, but we literally have taken everybody's best shot. When I look back through our season, through our district, people didn't look at us and say, "Oh, it's just Temple." They knew they had to gear it up and get ready to play football, and of course, obviously, we're seeing that through the playoffs. It's one of the things I've really been proud of this team for is that they have taken everyone's best shot and are sitting here, with a 1-point loss in the season and 11 wins. So. I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, I think this has been I would have agreed with that a year ago, but I think now, we really are having to. Now, I don't think our kids are, they're grounded and they understand and they get it and they get excited about game day and all those things. But I think our kids get it. That being on top requires a different focus and a different way to approach things.
Well, you mentioned taking everybody's best shots. One of those teams that you took a shot from was Hutto. You came out with a couple of touchdown lead or a couple of touchdown win in that game, and you look at them and they're still playing in the playoffs as well. So you've played good competition, 6A in the pre-district schedule, but certainly the district has proven to hold its own once the playoffs hit as well. So
absolutely.
And we'll talk a little bit specifically about George Ranch coming up here in just a little bit. We're going to talk to Chad President here in a bit. Cole Martin coming up in just a couple seconds. And defensive coordinator Scott Stewart going to join us as well as we continue with a special hour-long coaches show ahead of Saturday's game against George Ranch. It is a 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff. That game will be on K1017 on the FM side and at K1017FM.com. So spread the word that it'll be on the FM side Saturday exclusively, as Temple College basketball, I believe, will be on the other side. I think. Yeah. No, scratch that. I think we're going to do AM and FM. I think I messed that all up. We're going to do AM and FM Saturday. Don't worry. Just listen to 1017 and you'll be good to go. But we're going to come back, talk to Cole Martin, Mr. Ice Water in his veins. Cole Martin coming up here in just a couple of seconds on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Welcome back to the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. Jamie Garrett here with Head Coach Mike Spradlin. We've got Chad President coming up shortly. Defensive Coordinator Scott Stewart will join us in just a bit as we have a special hour-long Temple Coaches Show, and I'm Jamie Garrett back here, ready for the quarterfinals matchup coming up Saturday, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff here on KTIM. Actually, it'll be on K1017 exclusively because Temple College basketball will be on KTIM Saturday afternoon. So make sure you spread the word that it's on the FM side. Seems like some of the elder generation's scared of the FM side. It's not all long hair and rock and roll anymore. It's okay. It's safe. But we're here with Cole Martin now, and Coach Cole, whatever's been asked of him this season, there have been times that I look back at the Harker Heights game, the University game, where he played an entire half at quarterback, kicked off 8, 9, 10 times sometimes, and just did everything that was asked of him wherever it was on the field this season. Well,
the great thing about when you put a guy in a situation like we did last week with Cole, you look through the season, you look through his years here. Cole as a sophomore became our backup quarterback when Chad got hurt and Chase Truelove took over, and of course Cole did all our kicking duties as a sophomore. So he's never been a JV football player, and then you look at the situation he's had this year where he's had to come in and do some things. He's had opportunities late in the games and late in the season and actually play some quarters, and obviously started at quarterback for us against Elgin. And helped win us a district championship. So even though it's a pressure situation for him, it's not like he's never been in those situations before.
Yeah, unique situation. And Cole is joining us now. And Cole, looking back on that, every kicker goes through a routine pregame where you kind of get a feel of the field and the wind and everything else. With the wind at your back pregame, how comfortable were you feeling? What distance were you feeling comfortable with?
I've been pretty consistent with about 40 to 45 here lately, and when that time just came, that drive, at the beginning of the drive, I just kind of knew that it would come down to that. And, you just got to put yourself in the position to be ready for that.
Does it, I mean, obviously it does, but how much does it change your mindset when you go out there with a tie game versus, maybe down by a point or something?
It doesn't change it really a whole lot. You have to kick every kick about the same. You kick PATs the same way you would kick a 42-yard field goal. So just going into that, just kicking it the same way I've always kicked it.
Going through some of the extra point attempts even this year, I think this was maybe your third field goal attempt this year. I think they've all been good, which is a pretty good percentage. Looking at the PATs, there's been some times when the snap has been, Tyler Hannon, it looks like something out of the Matrix back there, the way he has to contort his body and get some of those snaps down. But when that throws off your routine like that, are you able to make that slight hesitation to adjust for that, or do you stick to your routine and just know that Tyler's going to have it down at the time he's supposed to have it down?
Well, I just know, Tyler's a really good athlete. He's been able to go up and get some that, we would have never thought that he would have been able to get. But, we just have kind of a trust that if he has time to put it down, he'll put it down, and if not, he'll go try to make a play for the 2 points.
Yeah, and certainly that's been the case at times this year. He's had to get out of there in a hurry, but that 42-yard field goal into the wind, how much did wind play a factor? Was it significant, or down on the field with that building blocking the way a little bit, did that help?
The building did help a little bit. There wasn't too much wind, but, you just got to go kick it.
And you did that, and you've been asked at times this year. We're talking with Cole Martin, and you've been asked at times to play quarterback. You had that district clinching championship in the regular season, and certainly I would think that this kick means a lot to you, being a playoff game, and Temple still playing because of it. But from your perspective as a football player, what is more fun? Is it kicking a 42-yarder in the regular season to win it, or would it be throwing a 42-yard pass to win it in regulation?
I personally think that quarterback is more enjoyable. Just there's so many things that you have to go through before the play and during the play. It just keeps you on your feet. And with kicker, it's kind of the same situation. You only get one shot. You don't get a redo. So
What's take us back down to the field. There's less than a minute to play in the game, and there was a time there, and I talked to Coach Spradlin in the first segment about it. Letting the clock run down to less than 30 seconds, and you got those plays, bam, bam, bam. You had the timeout. You said at the beginning of the drive you knew you were going to be called upon to do that. What's going through your mind at that point in time?
As soon as I knew, I went and tried to warm up my leg a little bit. Hadn't had a whole lot of chances that have to kick, so. I just went down and warmed up my leg and just waited for the opportunity.
And certainly took advantage of the opportunity when it was out there, and you could see the look of disappointment on the other side's face, the dog pile on you. What's it like to have 3,000 pounds on top of you after kicking that field goal?
I'm a little sore. I mean, it just it all happened so fast after the kick. It's not a whole lot that I can recall on right now, just because it all just went by like a blur.
It did for me as well. I had to go back and actually listen to the broadcast to make sure I didn't sound like a lunatic, because I don't remember. It was all a blur for about 5 minutes, but I remember one of the first things I said after the field goal was, I sure hope Cole is all right at the bottom of that pile, because he's a guy that's been relied on in many different facets this year, and certainly looking ahead to next year, you've got the quarterback position in your future, but it's all about this year. And would you, looking at a potential field goal, whether it's first quarter, first half, at the last second like it was, do you have a preference, grass field? I'm sure soccer's in your background at some point in time. Would you prefer a grass field, or do you like the new turf that's out there?
It doesn't really matter to me. I've found that, it's about the same for me. I don't really have a preference on what type of field we play on.
Well, certainly inside a dome, say at Jerry World, would be fun to kick in with no win there. So a couple wins away from there. Cole Martin joining us. Certainly appreciate your time. Best of luck in the coming weeks, and looking ahead to next year as well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll talk with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart coming up in just a bit. We're also going to have Chad President on with us. Coach Mike Spradlin will join us again as well as we look ahead to Saturday's game. 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff. It'll be on K1017. That's K1017FM.com, and on the free Radio Pup app that you can download on your tablets and smartphones. So lots of different options for you to listen on Saturday. We'll take a break. We're back with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart next with more of the Temple High School Football Coaches Show on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Jamie Garrett back here on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. Special hour-long edition leading into the Wildcats quarterfinal matchup this Saturday, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff on K1017 and online at K1017FM.com. Still to come, we are going to talk more with head coach Mike Spradlin. Also got Chad President joining us here in just a bit as we look ahead to George Ranch. Before we do that, let's look back at last Saturday's 38-35 win over Ridge Point here with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. And Coach, certainly a great start to the game for you. We knew that they love to go for it on fourth down. They've got the athletes to make it happen, but overall in the game, that fourth down game seemed to hurt them more than it helped them, thanks to the Temple defense.
Yes, sir. And we anticipated. We built it up all week long. They do put a lot of pressure on their defense. They put a lot of confidence in their defense going forward on fourth down, and we saw that time after time after time in film. So it's not like we did anything different, but we did kind of amp up the urgency on fourth down because, we all know that if you don't convert that, it's a game changer, especially, when they're on their own end of the field. And so they were pretty categorical about how they went for on fourth down. So we worked real hard on, in other words, whatever they determined what they did by formation. And we knew, because they'd done it 3 or 4 times before, that if they got in the empty set, they tried to run a little pick play. So we adjusted our coverage to that, and the ball hit us right in the hands. We didn't make a play there, but we got the ball on the short end, and the offense did what they do.
Yeah, Jeff Carr finishing off that first drive for the early lead certainly helps when you're playing a team that loves to run the ball as much as Ridge Point to get that early lead, especially the 2-possession lead early.
It is, and I thought we played very, very well except for 3 series. And again, at this point in the season, when you consistency is the name of the game, and when we fit them up and we did what we needed to do fit wise, we were fine. And then we had there were 3 series in a row, starting the last 2 in the first half and the first drive of the second half. We didn't tackle consistently and we didn't fit it consistently. But other than that, I thought our kids played hard. 35 points makes me cringe, but again, at this point, I'm trying with everything I have to kind of adopt Coach Spradlin's philosophy, which is just find a way and live to fight another day. I would have rather it been 38-3, but I don't get my way all the time. So
Well, one guy that had quite a game for them was Remus Bulmer. 37 carries I had him out in the game. I mean, that's a guy that's not a huge guy, so he's taken a pounding because your guys put a licking on him several times throughout the game. Was that part of the game plan? I mean, you always want to go and attack and hit hard and finish plays, but knowing that he was going to shoulder the rock so much, to get your shots in while you could.
And we knew he did. They didn't really run the ball with their quarterback, so, I mean, what we call it, we try to, metaphorically, we try to use it like a banking system. I mean, we always talk about putting deposits in. I mean, that stuff is accumulative. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Remus, I don't care if you're the Boyd kid. I don't care if you're the Remus kid. I don't care if you're, Adrian Peterson or those guys that are doing their thing at the next level. If you pound them enough, it takes its toll. And so our kids know that. I mean, we may not get the knockout shot, the one-hit wonder where they get carried off in a stretcher, but we know if we'll stay with it that those will pay off. And he got tackled a couple times in the fourth quarter that he didn't get tackled in the first half because and I can only attribute it to the fact that we do try to put those deposits in, so when we want to take a withdrawal later on, it's there.
And I believe sent him to the sideline once, maybe twice in the second half.
Yes, sir.
Because of those hits. And you talk about the 37 carries. He did have 240 yards, but looking back, I don't see a single 50-yard play on the book passing or running. So big improvement over the previous week.
It was, and I don't think they had the track star and the guy. I don't think he was quite the same back as what we saw the week before. And he didn't have the 50-yard plus, but he had 238s and a 42. So I mean, yeah, he had 230 yards rushing, but I mean, again, we're in that mode, and that's what we're desperately trying to fix. Is you erase those three, that takes away about 65% of his total yardage. And so, I mean, I don't know how many. We kind of broke it down, but I mean, we played 83 plays, which is quite a bit, but we played 83 plays on defense, and I think 60 or maybe even more than that, a little over 60 of their plays were 4 yards or less. So that means that those other 19 plays are where they got the majority of their yardage, which drives me insane, but we're fitting it up. It's just a matter of doing it all the time. That's the struggle we're with right now, and that's where our focus is right now.
Jamie, I don't know if Scott would agree with me. I can't recall ever in my career, and of course, obviously, we're in the elite group in the playoffs right now, but 2 weeks in a row having a running back carry the ball for almost 40 times, I mean, it's astounding to me. I mean, I rarely have seen anyone carry the ball that many times, period, much less 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
And I think some of that's attributable to what our defense is doing. I mean, I think he's having to carry it 40 times to get rushing yards. I mean, you say, okay, well, we gave up, he had 240 yards. Well, yeah, but he had to do that on nearly 40 carries. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. We're forcing them to pound and have to keep grinding and have to keep doing it. So Scott may or may not agree with me. I just don't know. I think I've ever played 2 games in a row where a running back had almost, 80 carries.
No, I agree. And with today's offenses, I mean, what they're going to do is, and what I've heard Coach Spradlin say it 100 times, is that you take what they give you. Well, what we're trying to give them is earning their way between the B gaps. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if we can do that, we can not only what we talked about earlier, maybe punish them a little bit, but philosophically we can kind of make them grind it out, as he pointed out, and make them run through those B gaps and make them run through the teeth of the defense. And, at least you make them earn their way at that point. I mean, we call that little sweep game, that little thing to the numbers, we call that the highway, and we desperately try to keep people off the highway because good athletes, that's where they want to be. I mean, Remus is a tough kid, no question, and I thought he ran the ball really hard, but he also did something he hadn't had to do in probably 12 weeks. So.
And one of the reasons that he had such a tough time is a number we were calling throughout the day was Travell Latouche. Mm-hmm. And he's been the punt returner this year, so that's where we seem to call his name a lot. But defensively, especially early, he had a dropped pick 6, but the offense ended up turning that into a touchdown anyway. But other than that one little slip, I mean, he was all over the field from his secondary position.
He was, and we kind of adopt the Baylor philosophy of next man up. So. Ponce got banged up the week before. He kind of had a tweak in his back, and he was relatively healthy, but he wasn't 100%. So Latouche took the lion's share of practice reps just to kind of get Ponce some more rest, and he did. He came out, and and there were some consistency issues. You know me. I'm never going to be half. Mm-hmm. I'm never half full, but we got stuff to fix. But I thought he played well. I thought he played hard. And he did a pretty good job coming in, and he's a really good athlete. And so we wanted to use a little bit of his speed, and then, went to Ponce and said, there was some stuff we were trying to make adjustments, and that's where I feel more comfortable with a 2-year varsity guy like Ponce as opposed to a kid that's going. I mean, Travell, we kind of pigeonholed him and said, I ain't going to ask you to do much. And so when we started making those adjustments, I just felt more comfortable with Ponce. But so he played probably more in the second half. But I thought Latouche did a heck of a job.
Yeah, had a big start to the game. And you mentioned those B gaps. You mentioned driving them down there. Certainly not a highway with 96 and 91 in there, and they were all over the place as well.
They were, and I think everybody saw from last week they're not going to be personalities on the radio anytime soon, but they are straight running stud ducks at what we asked them to do, and I'm real proud of those kids because they're 225, 230 pounds. They're not 290 pound.
They play bigger.
They play way bigger, and you can't say enough because we have gone against some really, really good. And I'm telling you, that Stratford O-line is as big as I've seen in high school. Last week, they weren't a lot smaller. I mean, and they're getting zone comboed, and they're doing that pro-style offense stuff that wears on you. I mean, it's tough, and not once have those kids ever patted their head. It's signaled the universal signal to come out, get me out of there. Well, we kind of spot replace them every once in a while, but I can't say enough about what those kids have done and what they mean to this defense.
I tap my headset at least half dozen times per game, want to tap out for a few minutes, especially when the offense is out there running. You mentioned the 83 plays, and a lot of that comes from the offense and the quick strike attack. I mean, a 65-yarder, 73-yarder. The offense is scoring big and scoring quick, and that puts you out there real quick again. And they were having drives that, one drive was 14 plays. So they certainly kept you out there for a long time. I know that having the twos out there and in such a consistent rotation helps, but had to be a pretty spent team at the end of the day.
They were, and you could tell that the celebration was one of elation, but it was, at the end, you go over there to those guys and you give them a hug, and you can tell when somebody spent their load. And that's what we asked them to do. I've told every one of them, I'll carry you off the field. If you physically can't walk off the field, I'll carry you. And again, it talks to the toughness and just the mental attitude of not only this community but these kids and what we've asked them to do and buy in. And again, we had a recruiter here yesterday that watched us work out, and he's like, "Woo, that's pretty impressive." So we physically demand, which in my mind also helps the mental part of demand a lot. But they spent their load. There's no question, and I was very proud of them for that. But and that's what it's going to take from this point on. You're not playing anybody that you can just kind of wholesale sub and do this. We're going to ask a lot of our guys, and so far they've met the challenge, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and certainly it helps this weather this time of year. Usually cooler, but Friday was kind of the exception. Had the misting fans out there and everything, so it was a pretty rough day physically for everybody. But that again goes back to the philosophy of pounding them all day, and you had to. They were finding success in the second half, but again, it wasn't consistent success. And after, late second quarter, early into the third quarter and into the second half, but in the fourth quarter, when you needed to make the plays, when you needed to get the ball back to your offense with a tie game, the defense came up big, and it speaks to the way this team rises to the occasion, whether it's a fourth down on the first drive of the game or the final drive of the game where you're trying to prevent a go-ahead score.
Right, and you kind of get a personality as we go through these seasons, and I've been through, I guess, 17 or 18 now as a coach, and you start to see personalities develop, and every group is different, and good and bad. You'll see, and these guys, for whatever reason, have decided that they're gonna lay it down when it's time to lay it down. And what I mean by that is step up, and they're gonna throw it on the turf, and they're gonna what we call stud up when it's time to. And that's as admirable quality in a young man as I've ever seen, because they don't want to. They tried everything they could to do it the one time we weren't successful, and that was Westlake. We gave up some stuff, but especially defensively. I think our offense is more consistent. Our offense is one of those that if you screw up, they're going to hit their head on the goalpost. Mm-hmm. So I'm probably speaking more from a defensive perspective, but we have been inconsistent at times. We have. Which drives me insane, because that's kind of where I try to hang my hat. But when it's time, and to be honest, when I came to the sideline at the end of the third quarter, when they scored their 35th point and tied it, I said, guys, we we're sitting here, we're trying to do some little stunt stuff, and I asked him all the time. I'll ask Ty, I'll ask what do you think? Let's go after him, because we wanted to be aggressive with these guys, but it's high risk, high reward. I mean, being aggressive is good, but that last third down play, I sent 7. I think everybody in the stands would cringe if they told you I was going to send 7, but that's who we are, and we're going. I tell our kids all the time, I am willing to do what no one else is willing to do because I know who you guys are. So that doesn't make me very smart. In fact, it makes me stupid when it doesn't work. But these kids have. I guess I'm saying all that to say these kids seem to have adopted that kind of personality when. We're willing to do some stuff other people aren't willing to do. I mean, we locked up the best receiver in that district with Clint Cole. He caught 1 ball for 7 yards. No one has done that. Everybody has double covered him and undercut him and double cut him and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's just a testament that our kids buy into the philosophy of what other people aren't doing don't work, so let's just do whatever. We'll get outside of the box. It goes back to the STS defense stuff. I mean, we just – That's what these kids want to do, and so I'm not keeping the reins on them. I mean, I'm turning them loose. So.
Well, and frankly, wouldn't be sitting here talking and wouldn't be playing another week if those 4 guys covering on the back end of that play when you're sitting 7 weren't doing their job. And that's one thing that has been consistent, especially here in the postseason. You played some great rushing attacks, but the difference in those ball games is holding the Stratford kid to 60 yards and holding Kreb under 200 yards at about 172 yards. So you've got that back end of the defense that's playing extremely well. You talked about the injury to Ponce, but you look around, you got Clint Cole, you've got Ashton Logan, a sophomore that's just playing lights out every single week, it seems.
Yeah, he is, and every day that he wakes up, he becomes a little bit better, and that's what sophomores have to do. I mean, he's not. Clint Cole is a guy I would change our coverage concepts for. I mean, in other words, we're going to find their stud and we're going to put 15 on it. I'm not going to ask a sophomore to do that because very few sophomores on the planet can do that. I've had kids that in my career, fortunately enough, that are playing in NFL right now that I didn't ask them to do what I'm asking Clint Cole to do when they were sophomores, because you can do just as much damage as good. I mean, Ashton has found his little niche and his little role in this defense, and he's doing a pretty good job at it, a real good job at it, and I'm very proud of that kid for that.
Well, looking ahead at George Ranch, you talked earlier about sending people through the B gaps and keeping them off that highway. George Ranch scored their first couple of touchdowns, I believe, on an end around on a jet sweep, and that's a play that I don't think Brian had the speed to match, and certainly seeing that it kind of lets you know that you've got to do some stuff to keep them off that highway.
We're going to keep them off the highway. I mean, I don't care if I got to take a slingshot out there. We're going to address. We have. I mean, we've kind of we've got an extra day this week because we're moving from Fridays to Saturdays. But all we've talked about is our fit system. We're not going to get fancy with these guys. We're not going to. A lot of people have tried to blitz them. They have the equivalent, in my opinion, of our offensive skill, which. It's kind of hard to say without getting a lump in your throat and throwing up if you're a defensive guy because, but I mean, they do have a kid that's a lot like Jeff Carr. They do have a kid that's a lot like Hatcher. They do have a kid that's a lot like President in the running aspect. Now, they don't think they throw it near as good as Chad does, but, they've got those 3 guys. And at any point, and so what we're going to do is we're going to make all 3 of them go through the teeth. And that's all you can do. And I'll sit here and tell you, if we fit them up and we do what we're supposed to do, which I know it's easy to say, but this system stops everything. And if we can make them go through the teeth, I feel real good about our plan and about what we're trying to do. If we don't, I mean, again, they're a lot like our offense. If we don't fit it, they make you pay, and they make you pay big. So, I mean, these guys are averaging 371 yards rushing per game, in 13 weeks. So that's what they do. They're going to come out, and it's a 3-headed monster, and they make you defend the entire field, or they try to. And what we're going to try to do is take that field, make it about 7 yards wide. So.
And you mentioned quarterback with the legs but not the arm. I would imagine he's playing this deep in the playoffs because he can make those plays, those passes when he needs to.
He can. And when I say this, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. This kid has a hose. I mean, we get there. I see their stats, and it says they've thrown for 1,200 yards this year or whatever it is, and I'm saying, okay, well, it's a lot like last week. This kid can't move around. And, I know he had a bunch of rushing yards, but then I'm watching him warm up before the game, and he's throwing the ball 50, 60 yards, and I'm like, whoa, what is this about? And so, I mean, he has a really, really good arm. and a lot of their game is the sprint out game to get him on the move, and then the other one is the home run ball. And he just hasn't been consistent on hitting that home run ball. And so what we can't do is we can't say, well, I hope he stays inconsistent. I mean, we've got to have those coverage concepts in place. I'm going to put a lot on their plate. If he throws the ball for 500 yards, at least we made them do something they didn't do. You know what I mean? But, I mean, we are going to have coverage concepts out there to address that and to handle it. And they've got the three-headed monster, and then they've got a Davion Curtis out there at wideout. I don't know if he's quite as fast, but, I mean, the kid can flat roll. So, they've got tremendous offensive skill, and they've done a really good job to this point in the year. And they have ridiculous stats, and they're averaging 41 points a game. So it's going to be a fun contest. It's going to be a very challenging contest. But again, I mean, if our kids will, and I know they will, but I mean, if we'll fit it and make them go through the B gaps, I like our chances as much as anybody else.
Yeah, you got Ty McCorkle and Quentin Smith there in the middle to clean it up when they do, so that's a good combo to have. Defensive Coordinator Scott Stewart joining us here on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. Thank you so much for your time once again. I hope to be talking to you again next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. I hope so.
All right, that game coming up Saturday, pregame 1:30, kickoff at 2 o'clock. The Longhorns of George Ranch will be the opponents down in Round Rock. Back to wrap things up. Actually, we've got Chad President waiting for us. We'll talk to him and then more with head coach Mike Spradlin as we continue with the Temple High School Football Coaches Show on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM, online at KTEMnews.com, and on the free Radio Pup app for your tablets or smartphones. It's the Temple High School Football Coaches Show as we do a special hour-long show this week. It'll lead right into the UMHB Coaches Show. Pete Fredenberg and John Wallin wrapping up the football season. Unfortunately, I guess I was the bad luck charm. I was out there on Saturday watching the game, and unfortunately UMHB came out on the losing end of that. The Temple Wildcats play at least one more week this week. It'll be on Saturday, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff. Don't forget, coming up here in just a bit, we're going to talk with Coach Mike Spradlin a little bit more about the upcoming game, but certainly one of the key components of the Temple offense that's just blew a team's defensive averages right out the window with an offensive performance. Chad President joining us, and Coach, you mentioned when we were setting up in here, Chad's up over 2,000 passing on the season. I was doing the math, almost 1,000 it seems here in the postseason, so it's been a good stretch using the arm for Chad.
Well, I mean, Jamie, great players and competitors, really start to shine, in the playoffs, and Chad's, had a great 3 games for us. He's been a tremendous leader, been not only in our games, but on the field as well. And he and I were talking, it's really kind of cool. Obviously at this point being one of 8 teams, you really do start looking at the prize. You realize, hey, we could be that team, that wins this championship. And for Chad, that would mean that he literally will graduate from high school and playing state championship game all in the same weekend. So that's a pretty cool deal because he'll be at Baylor here in January and we're in December. It's cold and we're still playing football, and that's a good thing.
Certainly could go from a state championship game to an NCAA championship bracket if Baylor's able to get through there. They'll be playing in January when Chad is on campus. Chad, we've had a chance to talk quite a few times this season. Glad we get another Tuesday here. Looking back at the game on Saturday, 38-35 win. You knew going out for that final drive, the defense had made the stop they needed to. You'd been having some trouble getting drives sustained in the second half, but certainly knew that for you it was now was the time.
Yeah, I said that going out there. I was like, it's time for us to. I told the O-line, I was like, it's our time. We got to go out there and we got to get this ball down the field, and we did that and came out with the game-winning field goal.
And a play to set up, the play before the play was a quarterback draw, a big play on a third and medium to long. I think it was 3rd and 7 somewhere in there, and you were able to pick up 11 yards and continue the drive on a quarterback draw and then get the timeout. But that was a play that's not run a lot. When you do run, it's a lot on the option, stuff like that. But it was something that obviously Ridgepoint hadn't seen, and you used your legs. Didn't have a lot of rushing yards, and that was on purpose in the game because a lot of passing yards. But that was a big play, and you were able to use your legs, kind of caught them off guard a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I kind of caught them off guard, and earlier in the game when we went to 5 set, they kind of spread it out, and so I told Coach, I was like, just do the QB draw, let me get this first down. And he called it, and I just executed it the best I can and keep the drive going.
Yeah, this is the second or third time this season in a close game late that you've used your legs to pick up big plays, big first downs, and then the next play, of course, the pass to Davion. You knew you only had one or two chances tops to get a play in there in time, and certainly had Davion, Davion had been burning him all day down the sideline with a huge game for him, but he cuts it off, cuts the drive off. You pick up another 12, 13, 14 yards and sets up Cole Martin. Had to feel pretty confident, given what you had seen from Cole throughout the year, that the nerves wouldn't get the best of him and you'd be going home without overtime.
Yeah, and we have a pre-practice, and that's when they work all the field goal game, and he takes that very seriously. And sometimes I sit over there and I just watch how far they back up and kick field goals and make them all the time. So I had every bit of confidence in Cole to make that field goal.
Yeah, and certainly helped that it was a tie game, 35-35. You knew one way or another that it wasn't the end of the game, but you knew after the way that they had played in the second half offensively and some of the struggles you had, you wanted to win that game. There was no way that overtime was an option.
No, I didn't think about overtime, to be honest. I thought we were gonna go down there. We're gonna put points on the board either kind of way, a field goal or a touchdown. And we did that, and that was a big drive, and that was a big field goal. It was just a big moment for Temple.
Yeah, Chad President joining us on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show, special hour-long edition. And Chad, going back to earlier in the game, especially the first half, from the first drive on, seemed to find success through the air. That air game kind of helped to loosen things up a little bit for Jeff and Marcus. They had a little bit of trouble going, but certainly the passing game was working early and often. I don't think I've ever seen a wide receiver as wide open as Davion was on one of those passes, maybe in the 73-yarder or the 60-something-yarder. It's hard to remember all of them in there, but huge day passing. Obviously, you found something there. Was it them trying to take away that run so much, or was it just you took advantage of some vulnerable cornerbacks?
You have a defense that focuses on two great backs that we have. And Coach Spradlin always says we're going to go in this game thinking we're going to throw the ball. And we came out there and we did that. And I think for us that's a big thing, because you look back at the district games and stuff like that, we really didn't throw it a lot because our running back, every time they touch the ball, they were in the end zone or picking up 25 yards. And when a running back is hot like that, you want to get them as many carries as they can. And so then as you look at it, they get the film and they look at us and they focus on those two running backs. And we got a receiving core as deep as ever as Coach Spradlin has been here. And once we get the ball out in the air, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, and Davion, huge game, 177 yards through the air on just 6 receptions. You did have the 2 early interceptions, I believe, over your first 5 pass attempts. You were 2 for 5 with a couple interceptions and an incompletion. One of those passes was your first of the game, which was a huge one. But struggles early, you overcame late. What were they able to do early to get to you at the beginning?
I don't think it was too much of them. I thought it was too much. It was kind of me trying to. I was forcing the ball in there. I threw it into like a triple coverage one time, and another time I just threw it up for grabs. And I had to settle down, and I just had to overcome those mistakes. And once I make a mistake, it goes out of my memory as quick as possible. And I just try to go back out there and not try to make the same mistake and just lead my team the best way I can.
Well, you mentioned that the first pass after that second interception was the 65-yarder to Davion, so that was a good way to bounce back. Looking ahead at what you're going to see this Saturday, George Ranch coming off a big win against Bryan over the weekend. Offensively, we listened to the game on the way back on the smartphone, and they seem to have a pretty potent offense, but it's the same story as it has been every week. Defense is coming in, putting up some pretty gaudy numbers, and you're expected to go out there and kind of blow those averages out of the water.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to go out there and just execute to the best of our abilities, and just spread it out, run it, do what we do offensively, and then the defense will take care of their business.
Now, George Ranch defensively, what do they run at you that jumps out at you in film?
No, they run a 4-3 defense, cover 4, cover 2, or man coverage, and we'll exploit that with our athletes, and we just got to go out there and get the game plan ready and execute.
And a game a little bit closer to home, so obviously going to be a huge crowd for both sides. But that home crowd atmosphere, the support that's been on the road as far away as it was, 2 hours, 24 minutes, according to Google Maps, from the stadium down in Cypress. Got to be nice having that home support there to back you.
Yeah, it is always nice. We were warming up on the field, and they weren't letting anybody in yet, but you can hear them outside the gate, yelling Temple Wildcats, and we're here, and all that kind of stuff. It gives you a great feeling that people come out here and all the way down there and they support you, and we don't want to let them down.
And one more question for you. Certainly a big weekend for your future team, the Baylor Bears, playing Kansas State to close out the season. You think if they win, TCU wins, that wins enough to bump them up and get them into that 14 playoff?
I think it does.
I don't see how it couldn't. That's one of the great travesties in sports. I know it's off topic, but you beat them head-to-head. You kill, close, similar competition, and you're still right behind TCU. It's unbelievable. But future Baylor Bear, current Temple Wildcat, at least we're hoping for 3 more games. Chad, President, thank you so much for your time. We'll take a break, come back, begin to wrap things up with head coach Mike Spradlin. Look ahead to the George Ranch game coming up this Saturday, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock will be the kickoff on K1017. Spread the word that it'll be exclusively on the FM side this weekend. Thank you so much, Chad, and we'll have that game for you start at 1:30. We're back with more of the Temple High School Coaches Show next on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Jamie Garrett's back with head coach Mike Spradlin. My thanks once again to defensive coordinator Scott Stewart, Chad President, who just joined us, Cole Martin from earlier in the show. A lot of the key components of the Temple Wildcats' continued success in the playoffs, playing in the state quarterfinals Saturday against George Ranch. You got the chance to see them in person. Offensively from George Ranch, they seem to have the big playability. They ran the jet sweep with success. We talked about that. Defensively, they held Bryan, they were pretty inept, statistically, and they took them out of the game early out of their offense. What does George Ranch do defensively that jumps off the film?
Well, Jamie, George Ranch, we're talking about a football team that's 25-2 now over the last 2 years. They were 13-1 a year ago. They're 12-1 this year. And what we're seeing, this dynamic is these new schools that are opening. Same thing as Ridge Point. We're facing teams with majority 3-year senior starters. 3-year senior starters, and so it creates a dynamic. Defensively, they've got a 6'5", 290-pound defensive tackle that's going to A&M. They've got a couple other highly recruited guys. I think they've got 7 or 8 D1 recruits, on their football team. And so they're very aggressive and very good defensively. They play a little bit different. They're not the same front as Ridge Point is, and so we'll have to create a little bit different game plan for them. But we're just going to try to go out and do what we do. Our philosophy offensively is we're going to try to take what they give us and do our thing and create more multi-dimensional stuff. Try to get ourselves in different formations and keep the pace moving and keep the tempo moving. And they are not as up tempo as Ridge Point was offensively. That's why we saw so many plays, I think, in last week's game. Both of the teams were up tempo. They're not quite as up tempo as we are. So we'll try to do that and do our thing, get the ball snapped and create and make first downs and hopefully create some big plays.
Well, you mentioned the 7 or 8 D1 athletes that are out there. So I asked this question kind of knowing the answer. This sounds like the most talented team that you faced this year. I think
it's close. I look back and we've seen some really good athletes this year, including the sophomore kid quarterback at Westlake But they're darn talented, Jamie. They're really probably across the board the most talented group we've seen. Ridge Point was very good defensively and very talented defensively, but not more so than the group we're playing. They are different. They're not the same front. They don't play things the same, but probably as talented offensively as any team we've seen. I know Scott mentioned it, but they've got 3 cats that if you make a mistake, they can make you pay. And of course, that's a dynamic we think we bring to the table offensively. And so it's do we want to get in a shootout? No. Is that our plan? No. But if those, you have to be ready for anything at this point. When you're one of 8. You've got to go in and you've got to let the game develop and you've got to be prepared to score when they do and to keep scoring when they don't. So that's going to be the key Saturday.
Looking back on the season, whether it's been a broken bus with no air conditioning on the way to Austin Westlake or the Bryan game where you play 7 games and it's back on the bus to go home, the different styles you've had to play, the different types of games you've had to play to win those games, it seems like adversity and coach speak aside because every coach is going to say it. Truthfully, this seems like a team full of seniors at key positions and full of really mature younger guys that follow the lead of those seniors. It's a team that can win in any way and can deal with about any adversity you throw at them.
I really believe that. I think it's what I love about football is that I've said this and I've probably said it on the show before, but life's not all about football, but football is all about life. And to me, the maturing of a young man on the football field is as big a dynamic. It's why I got into coaching. To me, the life lessons that you learn, the grind, the team aspect, the playing for everyone else and not yourself, playing for something bigger than who you are. Boy, these guys have figured that part out. I mean, this is a family unlike anyone that I've coached. They literally are as close as any group that I've coached. We spent a lot of time together since August the 5th or 10th or whatever it was, and they're really doing a good job with that, Jamie. And we have overcome some adverse situations. You know, we played for a district championship without our starting quarterback. You know, we've had to kick a field goal now to win a game, you know, with 4 seconds left. Those are things that you hope take you to the big show. But at this point, it's anybody's game, and we think it's ours, and I'm sure they think it's theirs. And so here we go. You know, there's going to be 4 of us left standing after Saturday, and we want to be one of those 4.
Well, I'll give you one final chance here as we wrap up. You notice we've gone an entire hour, and I didn't once bring up the officiating. I'm getting better. I'm restraining myself. But I saw a picture. Joe Olivares takes great pictures of the Wildcats. We use his imagesbyolivares.com pictures for our broadcasts. And he took a great picture of you after the game, a couple of pictures, one of you and Chad hugging after the game, and one just a profile picture of you. And you looked to be pretty emotional after that game. Is this, looking back at this past Friday, I mean, certainly bigger wins on the way we hope, but is that as a big a win as you've seen, just the way it was done and the way this team has won this year?
You know, Jamie, I mean, obviously it's very fresh in my mind, but I can't recall a win in my career that I've felt any more euphoric about. You know, we fought hard at Cooper. We were in the 3rd round 3 times. You know, the 3 years prior to me coming to Temple, and we didn't get past it. You know, we faced a really good Denton Geyer team who wound up winning state championship and wound up winning 2 of them. And so to advance, you know, this is 4 times in the last 7 years we've been in. You know, I've had an opportunity to coach in this round. To advance with this group here in Temple with this fan base, for me, Jamie's my career highlight. Now, am I planning on there being a bigger highlight? Absolutely. I don't want anybody to think that we think we've done all we're going to do. I mean, I can tell you right now, I've never been more motivated, and I don't think our kids have ever been more motivated to continue to advance, because it will get better. I mean, as euphoric as that game was, we're back on our solid 2 feet right now. We really are as a team, and man, we're on a mission. I mean, you can taste it, you can feel it, and you can see it. And you know, it's like I told him yesterday. You know, when you run that sprint relay, you're going to hand that baton off 3 times. When you hand it off to the last guy, which in our case was Davion Curtis this past year, and we had a nationally ranked sprint relay team, when Davion gets the baton, he can see the finish line. You know, we're in that mode right now. When you get down now, there's literally at this point 2.5 weeks of football left in the season. When you see that finish line, it makes you want to get to that finish line. So we know we're certainly not looking ahead. We know we got George Ranch, but we're motivated to try to make that happen, Jamie.
Well, the next baton gets passed Saturday, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock kickoff coming up in just a few moments. The UMHB Coaches Show. Hopefully we'll be able to chat again next Tuesday as the Temple Wildcats face George Ranch Saturday. That game on K1017FM.com, on KTIMnews.com, on K1017 and 1400 AM, and of course on the free Radio Pup app for your tablets or smartphones. So just a short drive down I-35. Might even be able to pick it up on 1017 in the parking lot and inside the stadium. So it's going to be a good day. A lot of folks down there, and look forward to another chat here in another 7 days. Coach Mike Spradlin joining us. My thanks again to Defensive Coordinator Scott Stewart. Chad President was with us. Cole Martin was with us. And I think I need my note back to class now, because I think we're all wrapped up here on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. My thanks to you, Coach Spradlin. UMHB Coaches Show on the way next on News Radio 1400 KTEM.